In recent times, analog horror has faced a sharp decline in terms of quality, support, and overall engagement. However, I've been on the lookout for months and months for a series that embodies the essence of analog horror by leveraging retro visuals, distressed footage, and VHS style presentation to the highest possible quality. And I have certainly found it with this series, Obelisk. This series contains elements that evoke a strong sense of nostalgia, turning the familiar into something unsettling. The grainy textures, the visual glitches, and the eerie ambience reinforce the unsettling atmosphere central to the analog horror genre. Not only that, the masterful use of ambiguity and fragmented storytelling. Instead of offering clear narratives or explicit threats, Obelisk unfolds through the fragmented clips, emergency broadcasts, test patterns, and instructions that feel deeply out of place. The audience is forced to piece together the narrative, which heightens the tension and engagement for the overall viewer, rather than being spoon-fed like a lot of stories do. This storytelling technique aligns with the most effective traits of analog horror, respecting the viewer's intelligence and inviting them in to the mystery that is involved with this story. A real big positive to me is also how this series promotes the atmosphere over conventional scares. Rather than relying on jump scares or graphic gore, Obelisk evokes dread through silence, pacing, and subtle suggestion, as well as incredibly creepy sound effects. This minimalistic horror draws from psychological unease, making every flicker or glitch feel loaded with meaning that has a dark undertone. This to me creates a series that takes advantage of the strengths that can be conveyed in the analog horror genre, leveraging psychological tension over overt shocks and obvious gore, like a lot of series do follow. In today's video, we're going to be breaking down every episode in this series so far, all the way from episode 1 all the way to episode 5 of Why Do You Keep Us Here. However, if you have not gone and supported this series, this creator absolutely smashes it with every level of horror in this series. I would highly recommend going to watch the series in full if you haven't already before you click in to this analysis. But yeah, let's get straight into the video. Let me know what you think of this series in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe if you like anything to do with analog horror. And without further ado, let's dive deep into the dark world of Obelisk. Episode 1, entitled My New Best Friend, begins with a stark black screen, with text that reads, "I made a new friend, do you want to meet him?" We then get a cut to a shot of a closet, seemingly empty. However, this episode builds up a sense of dread to what actually may lie in this closet. Is someone seeing something that we cannot see, or is anything really there at all? We slowly get that answer in the next cut as our character slowly builds up and walks towards this closet that we clearly see has a figure lying within it. We then get someone opening the closet to realize that that person that was lying inside has slowly disappeared and is nowhere to be seen. We then get shots of a television screen, as more text appears on screen. This episode creates a level of dread through sound design. The TV on the screen creating a sense of liveliness within the home. However, we know that something deep and dark is really going on as "He Is Here" appears on screen, as it slowly cuts to black. We then get more shots of the house as the person begins to stroll around. The looming sense of dread just heightens and heightens as "He is upstairs" is muttered by our character, as they slowly begin to approach the staircase. We then get a shot of a dark staircase, implying that the person that we are meant to be seeing is there. However, all we see is darkness, as when the person goes upstairs to where we see this. The episode ends with this figure going back within the closet as it slowly gets swallowed by the darkness. The opening of this episode and series immediately sets a tone of eerie suspense, playfully innocent yet deeply unsettling. The idea of a child's new friend hiding within a closet taps into both nostalgia and primal fear, something that we've all experienced, however something that can be so severely sinister. This episode sets the tone for an incredible series and gives incredible atmospheric horror. Not only scary, but deeply disturbing. Episode 2's title as You're Almost Gone immediately invokes a sense of impending loss and displacement. It suggests either a psychological dissolution, perhaps fading from reality, or something that is a little bit more literal, like being consumed or being replaced. And that is the vibe we definitely get from this next episode. This next episode really does showcase how creepy this series can really be, really giving me vibes of the film Skinamarink if you've seen that, while also providing a narrative and tone as the camera person repeatedly asking, "Can you see it?" reads as if they're looking for validation or this creature's existence alone. This interaction really blurs the line between participant and observer. Coupled with the title, it might signal a moment where the friend, quote unquote, or entity nearly overtakes the narrator, hinting at themes of erasure or possession. And that is something that is so uncommon in the analog horror genre, which really provides a fresh and really refreshing taste of what horror can truly be in this genre, providing a level of originality that we just have not seen before, while also creating a level of dread that really has the viewer on edge. This episode is my personal favorite, just purely because you don't exactly know what's going to happen. There's no outright story being told in this episode. You are just experiencing a level of atmosphere and dread that no other analog horror can create recently. And to me, that creates an emotional impact with minimalistic dread, personal destabilization, and the discomfort of seeing someone's perspective being challenged. This episode really, in my opinion, leads into erasing boundaries while also leveling out what could actually be going on in this world. This episode to me is by far the most confusing, but also the most interesting because of the fact you cannot exactly tell what is being told. It's all down to speculation. Once again, going back into that theme of letting the viewer interpret what they're seeing. And to me, that is such an important thing with horror, because for me, the theory of the unknown is the scariest thing in horror, because no matter what you show on screen, if that is darkness, your mind is going to come up with something infinitely creepier, and that is what's so beautiful about this episode. To me, it creates that level of dread and atmosphere that really gives it into the back of your mind, while also seeing these creepy figures but blurring out their faces, not letting us experience what actually could be going on in the dark hallways, in that dark forest. We don't exactly know what we are witnessing, and that is what makes it so much scarier, which instantly puts Obelisk as one of the most disturbing and also one of the most confusing but most interesting analog horror series, and we're only 2 episodes in. Episode 3 instantly provides you with an unnerving, intimate feeling, as the title "In Your Home" instantly sent a shiver up my spine. This title implies that whatever this entity is, it's not just distant or metaphorical, it's close. It's so close that it might be just next door, in the opposite room. That phase alone begins to trigger paranoia. Familiar spaces, like your house, like your bedroom, like your living room, or even your child's bedroom, is no longer safe. The horror here plays on vulnerability through neglect that is something terrible hidden in plain sight, flourishing because it's overlooked. This episode is short and sweet, but leaves a mark on every single viewer, as that face alone in the doorway is absolutely haunting. This to me is one of the scariest episodes of the series and provides a level of paranoia like no other. Episodes like this really emphasize how scary the genre can be when it's taken into account how scary real life scenarios like this can be. From the title alone, it gives you an idea what's to expect, but you still cannot be prepared, not just from what comes out from the darkness of the closet, but also the sound effects and sound design that come within this episode. Instantly, this episode provides a level of cinematography and also cinematic natures that provide a level of professionalism for analog horror, something that is very much neglected within the genre, and is a nice refreshing taste that a creator can take this spin on the genre and make it that much more professional. To me, this episode just builds on what the previous one was good at, providing extra scares, but also providing a level of personality and also association with the viewer, something that can be absolutely terrifying, that your own home, your own area of safety, is actually not safe at all. The next episode, The House with No Windows, is the longest and most impressive episode of the series yet, which involves an almost liminal-like land or area of space with no surrounding area or any signs of living creatures, but stands a long, windowless and doorless building. Like the title suggests, a house with no windows. This episode evokes both confinement and sensory deprivation. A home without any outward views becomes almost claustrophobic, and while inside, extremely disorienting, with no escape and no outside anchor. This episode in the series draws not only some hints at lore, but may depict a realm where the quote-unquote obelisk is not just a thing, but it's a portal to a whole nother world. The windowless house could be either the physical form of that portal, or the psychological effect it has on being trapped within it, cut off from reality, sight, or in any form of rescue. The episode delves into the lines between worlds, the known and the unknowing, with windows that are either removed or never existed in the first place, to keep us from perceiving what lurks on the other side. Our character in this episode decides to break that boundary and break into the house with no windows. And it's safe to say, once he eventually breaks the latch and finds the hole in the floor, he comes across something deeply disturbing and also deeply, deeply confusing. A house that gives a very big vibe of the back rooms, again brings that claustrophobic feel, with feeling like something lurks around every corner of every hallway. Our character makes his way around the house as the ambience just settles into the viewer sensory system as just being claustrophobic, and also generating a sense of ambience and worry of what might await our character here. The yellow walls, also lit by just the camera light, makes an element of ambience that is never seen in the series before. Upside down rooms once again remind me of Skinamarink, almost drawing exactly from specific scenes in that film. The vibe of this episode is not only just creepy and confusing, but ultimately extremely, extremely interesting on what might lie ahead for our character here. Again, once strolling between hallways upon hallways, we eventually reach an arched door, as darkness just fills ahead. Our character eventually strolls up to this darkness, and we just have a feeling something is going to grab from the darkness. However, the camera lingers and holds on these shots so much so to create a level of uncomfortableness within the viewer, giving a sense of not knowing what's going on, but ultimately showing something deeply, deeply disturbing within the house. This already sets the tone for something that is not only just confusing and creepy, but this shows that our character is actually trapped with another life form in this house. Knowing this, it confirms all the viewer's thoughts allowing us to really perceive of what's going on here. There is something lurking in this house, stalking this character. We don't know its intentions, we don't know its capabilities, and ultimately we don't even know what it is in the first place. As our character lurks through different rooms, he eventually comes across these random rooms that are both upside down and dimly lit, and sometimes even vastly lit, like this music room. This music room is very, very confusing, and it does give this sense of a liminal space. While also confusing, in somewhat, it feels like a bit of normality. This episode blends both reality and otherworldly natures, as we're in a house with no windows, but yet this specific room seems almost normal. Seems almost like it could be in any of our own houses. However, that creature could be watching us at any point, and ultimately, by the end of this video, we do get that answer. Ultimately, The House with No Windows is by far the most ambitious episode in the series thus far. A creation that has so much ambience and so much atmospheric horror that encapsulates what this series is all about. This series doesn't rely on jump scares, doesn't rely on having to really scare this viewer in terms of how a normal analog horror may do. It takes its own leaps and also takes its own risks in order to have a longer lasting effect on the audience, and which it does absolutely successfully. The House with No Windows is an encapsulating episode which has you on edge all through its 8-minute runtime, dragging it out, almost making it 8 minutes feel like 2 hours, but in the best possible way. 8 long minutes of you on the edge of your seat, waiting for the thing behind the corner to leap out at you. The final episode, Why Do You Keep Us Here, is almost a bittersweet ending to the story we've experienced thus far. One of the most compelling stories in this episode is surrounding the older sibling of a character referred to as Abby, or a kind of caretaker figure. This interpretation is partly drawn from the detail that a crib is placed near the doorway, hinting at a protective or supervisionary role for the creature. However, this episode dives into themes and emotional resonance, identity and familiarity. The phrase, "Is it really you?" embedded in the video description raises questions of recognition and alienation. It suggests a confrontation with someone or something once familiar that is now gone distorted. Another big theme is the unknown within the known. As with many analog horror videos, this one plays upon the tension between everyday settings, like the presence of a crib, and the intrusion of something uncanny. This mixture of domestic familiarity and unexplained horror heightens the emotional impact that this episode brings. The third and final theme I personally experience is care, protection, or confinement. Depending on interpretation, the creature's relationship to quote-unquote Abby may either be caring, safeguarding her from unseen threats, or unsettling, acting as a guardian yet bound by purpose or compulsion. The proximity of the crib adds ambiguity of, is it a protective barrier, or is it a boundary for no escape? This episode overall has an impression of provoking speculative engagement from its audience with once again minimalistic storytelling. That is what's carried this series so much so, in my opinion, to have such confusion, but confusion that has an intriguing nature. The creature seen in this one is the exact same creature as in your home, which once again provokes this level of confinement within this house. Is this house similar to The House with No Windows, or is this the exact same house we're seeing, but through the vision of someone who's confined within? This episode focuses on mood and visual storytelling and symbolism, rather than quick, explicit narrative exposition, balancing subtle emotional beats like family dynamics with the classic strangeness of analog horror. However, this episode does have some questions that still remain. For who exactly is Abby, and what is their significance in the narrative universe? Is the creature malevolent, or something beyond clear moral alignment? And what does the phrase, "Why do you keep us here?" suggest about the memory or captivity going on in this story. To me, this episode brings a level of story beats that has an emotional kick to it, showing that this creature could either be just trying to keep someone in their life as they feel lonely. That could very much be a possible story beat here. However, it is a very, very interesting story beat to think that this creature could have a more sinister thought process around it. To me, Obelisk has a level of ambiguity that really transforms this series into something generic to something absolutely superb. The minimalistic storytelling is something I absolutely adore, which lets the viewer, as once again mentioned, have their own interpretation about what's going on here. Why Do You Keep Us Here came out 4 months ago as of recording, and it's a statement in the analog horror genre, as it really shows how this minimalistic storytelling could actually have a more long-lasting effect on those rather than just having jump scare fests in analog horror. To me, this creator has a level of storytelling that really provides a level of ambiguity that transforms something that may be confusing into something that's actually more terrifying in the viewer's mindsets. The thought process that goes behind each video as you're experiencing it just gets more and more deeply disturbing. For example, the house with no windows, seeing the creature peep around the corner really provides a level of jump scare that's not completely in your face. For example, the first interpretation of that creature around the corner could have been completely missed by viewers who weren't paying enough attention, as in the big reveal at the end of that episode would give them a real big scare. Now, it's still known that this series is being continued. I would assume it will be, and I'm very much anticipating the next episode. I'm really hoping to dive deeper into the story of this Abby character. To conclude this analysis, Obelisk is a sterling example of analog horror done right. Atmospheric, enigmatic, and deeply unsettling. It honors the genre's traditions while also taking its own unique ground. The calculated restraint, eerie audio visuals, and faith in audience imagination all contribute to a haunting experience that really sticks with you. If you're into analog horror that respects your intellect and invites slow burn dread, Obelisk is definitely worth exploring and definitely worth something to follow, as Lizard Menic continues to develop their amazing horrific craft. I am eagerly awaiting to see what's next for this creator in this series, because I am so deep in the story and what could actually be going down here, and I slowly await the next episode, as you all should too. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you have enjoyed this analysis. I've had an absolute blast making this video, and it's taken me a few days to edit this one. I've had such a fun experience creating this episode of analysis while also delving deeper into this series and delving deeper than I ever thought. The support on the channel has been absolutely incredible as of late, and I really appreciate everyone who's dropped a sub as we're getting closer and closer to 8,000 subscribers. We are trying to hit 10k by the end of October, so if you could help us hit that, it would be so greatly appreciated. And I really hope you have enjoyed today's video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Make sure to check out Obelisk in the top of the link in the description and go support the creator, and make sure to have that notification bell for when the next episode is uploaded. But thank you all so much for watching. As always, stay safe and peace. First shot of this episode, Tammy picks this house.
Oh, what about that one?
Now, if you ask me, that is the, worst house you can pick. It has wallpaper on the outside.